What is the most terrifying thing you've ever experienced while home alone? I was home alone one night while my wife and son were visiting my mother-in-law. I walked back to our bedroom to see someone rummaging through my son's room on the video baby monitor. Immediately grabbed my firearm and yelled to the other side of the house, "I am armed, come out slowly," over and over while slowly making my way back to his room. Got there, flipped on the lights, and nothing. Searched the whole house, pumped full of adrenaline. Finally satisfied I was alone, I went back to my room and the guy was back in the room. I took a close look and I'm ashamed to say I was looking at myself. The camera is a live feed on our Wi-Fi and it was steaming on a huge delay. I've never known it to do that and it has not done it since. One day while I was working afternoons a couple of years back, I woke up around 10 a.m. and started to watch American Dad before getting up. Next thing you know, I hear my back door open. A normal thing in our home since we only use the back door, but no one was supposed to be home yet. I assumed it was my mom and didn't think anything of it. Then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs as my bedroom was on the second floor. I call out to my mom and get no response. Then my door cracks open and a head pops in. It's a 30-ish-year-old man with a blonde beard and a big mane of greasy hair who looks shocked to see me. At the time I was about 260 pounds, 6'3" and 20 years old, male. I was also sitting in only my boxers. Before I was able to realize what was happening, he asked, "Is this the family name residence?" To which I reply, no. He makes a swift exit and before I can recollect my thoughts, he's not even in my driveway. Talk to a family friend who is a veteran police officer. Turns out a man has been pulling this kind of stunt to rob people in nearby towns. A few years back when I was home alone during a power storm, I went into the bathroom to take a dump and at the exact same time I was shitting, I sneezed. Well, the power went out as well. The house was pitch black and literally I thought I shit myself blind. I couldn't see my hands, so in panic I was yelling, "No, this cannot be true." I was in panic, feeling for the toilet paper to wipe and flush. After completing the task, I just sat on the toilet, trying to figure out how to tell everyone I know that I literally shit myself blind by sneezing while shitting. After about 2 minutes of complete darkness and dread, a panic lightning struck outside and lit up my hallway. Best damn feeling ever. I was chilling on the couch doing whatever when suddenly a really heavy person starts sprinting in our attic. Sounded like steel-toed boots and everything. I'm a really small woman, so I'm immediately freaked out, thinking there is a gigantic man stomping around my home. Then a screaming starts. Literal fucking screaming. Like someone from The Exorcist and there's multiple voices. I sneaked outside and cried, extremely shaken, and called the cops. Guess what's in my attic? Not a big rapey rapist, no. Raccoons. Also, the raccoons were mating. That's what the screaming came from. I bawled to the cops about horny raccoons. I was about 21 or 22 and living by myself at the time, and I left my window open on a pleasant night. It was low enough to the ground that you could get in if you really tried, but the screen wasn't easy to take off and I lived in a fairly safe neighborhood, so I didn't even think twice about it. Woke up in the middle of the night because I smelled smoke and I reached out to turn on my lamp and my hand hit what was very obviously a person. My brain fully woke up at that point and realized there was a shirtless man in my bedroom smoking a cigarette and staring at me. I remember yelling for him to get out and I must have spooked him just as badly as he spooked me because he leaped out of my window and took off. I slammed it shut and moved a bookcase in front of it, and when I went out the next morning in the daylight, found the screen sitting against the house. Didn't sleep the rest of the night and I haven't slept with a window more than cracked ever since. I also absolutely refuse to live on the ground floor of a building. I don't know if he was planning to rob me or rape me or both, but it was absolutely terrifying and makes me wonder how many times it happened and I didn't wake up. You know those thongs in the kitchen that have a spring but a latch to keep them together? I had a pair of those and I put the latch on and put them down on the counter. I went away for a bit and came back and then they jumped off the counter at me. Biggest jump scare of my life. The latch had come undone and they sprung open. But in a millisecond, when an inanimate objects suddenly come to life and jump at you, you don't realize this and totally freak out. I moved into our house a month ago before my husband did, and I was painting our guest room with the windows wide open. I was busy painting, listening to music when I realized it had gotten dark outside. I heard the leaves crunching outside, but didn't think anything of it because we have a lot of neighbors who walk their dogs. When I went to close the windows, I saw a man standing in my backyard under the tree, maybe 5 feet from our back door, staring up at me. I fell to the floor and realized the back glass door was probably open and nothing but a screen, which he could have easily just walked into my house. Crawled to my phone and called my husband, who then called 911 while rushing home to me. We have a 6 feet tall fence around our yard. This person hopped it to watch me. I couldn't sleep right at night for months. One afternoon, someone knocked at my back door. I thought it was the guy coming to read our meter, so I opened the door. Next thing I know, 2 huge guys pushed me into the house and one of them threw me against the wall. Then they shoved me down on the couch. They told me they were Hell's Angels and they were pissed because my boyfriend was selling too much drugs, cutting into their profits. They kept calling me by my next door neighbor's name. We had suspected they were selling drugs. All of the people stopping by for less than 5 minutes made it pretty obvious. I just kept telling them I wasn't her. One of them searched the house while the other kept me pinned to the couch. They started to realize they were in the wrong house because they couldn't find anything where they were told it was. My neighbor's house is a single floor with a basement. My house is a 4-level back split. Then I showed them my mail because it showed my name and they knew they fucked up. They started telling me that they were after my neighbor's boyfriend because he raped their cousin, which I knew was bullshit, but I didn't care. I just wanted them to leave. They robbed me of my cash and left. I now have locks on my screen doors. One night I was watching The Conjuring at home with my little sister when we heard someone putting a key into our front door and opening it. We were sitting in the living room next to a sliding door that was very close to the front door, so we both heard it very clearly. Now this didn't alarm us since we knew our dad had recently gone out to get some stuff, so we just assumed he had returned. "Dad, you're back already?" I casually asked. There was no response. "Dad?" I asked again, thinking that he had not heard me the first time. Again, silence. At this point, I get the feeling that something isn't quite right, and I could tell by the look on my sister's face that she was quite nervous as well. I will note that up to this point, she had spent the evening rolling her eyes at horror movie cliches, and she very rarely gets scared. We look at each other for a moment, wondering what we should do before we started hearing a few more scattering sounds from right outside the sliding door. I was frozen in fear by this stage. I tried one more time in a louder but shakier voice. Dad? Is that you? Please respond, repeated in my head, but the silence continued. Now at this point I'm freaking out and I literally jumped off the couch. My sister also abruptly gets up and starts rapidly walking towards the other end of the room, which leads to the kitchen area. She later revealed to me she was planning on grabbing a knife. She had this horrified look on her face that I hadn't seen before. We looked at each other in nervous silence. I didn't really know what to do and I didn't want to make any further sounds. I finally decided to walk up to the sliding door and began opening it as slowly as possible, peering into the darkness. I know, literally became the idiot who investigates the unknown, creepy noise without anything to protect myself with. When the door was finally open wide enough, I poked my head around and scanned the corridor, preparing for the worst. To my surprise, there was no one there. But what was more strange was that the front door was still completely shut. We never heard the door close. My sister and I were obviously both extremely relieved as we were almost certain that there was an intruder in the house. After this, I immediately went to go ask my mom, who was situated in her bedroom at the other end of our house, if it was her or whether she had noticed anything. She told me that she thought my dad had come home as well, as she also heard someone opening the front door. Around half an hour later, which felt like an eternity at the time, as we were still quite shaken from the incident, my dad finally arrived home and confirmed that he had not come home earlier. To this day, my sister and I still have no idea what happened that night. When I was 19 in my first apartment, I had someone knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw this burly, heavy-set man who abruptly started screaming to let him in. He was screaming like he was going to beat my ass and kick the door down if I didn't open. I called the cops, and as soon as someone got on the phone, he started body slamming my door to break in. I was freaking out and crying as they quickly had 5 cops showing up within 5 minutes. As soon as he heard the sirens, he quickly walked away and they met him at the bottom of the stairs. Apparently he was after the previous renter but was extremely intoxicated. They arrested him and thankfully he never came back. I ended up breaking my lease and moving out 3 months later. It was in a very nice neighborhood, but it quickly made me wish I was back home with my family instead of being on the other side of the United States. My mom had something similar happen to her a year or so ago. She lives in a high-rise and all the floors look identical in the hall. A drunk man tried to get into her apartment and started yelling and screaming at her to let him in. She called the building security and they came to deal with him. He lived a couple of floors above her. My boyfriend worked away from home a lot and I always struggled to sleep on the first night he was away. On this occasion, I was woken by the sound of a man shouting and then someone banging on wood or a front door. I jumped up and looked out of my bedroom window, just in time to see a man dressed all in black walking through our garden towards the house. I ran to the front of the house to look out of the front window and make sure he kept going. He did, but he met up with another man dressed in black walking towards my house. I was terrified and called the police. They arrived in a matter of minutes and checked out the back garden, but they were gone. Turned out a neighbor had caught them both trying to steal his car and one had escaped through the gardens while the other had run through the roads and they had met up outside my house. I didn't sleep at all that night and my brother came to stay the next night. I'm so glad I live in an apartment now, much more security. I have a kind of similar story. I was maybe 9 years old by myself at home. My grandmother had chickens. They usually ran outside but always stayed in our yard. So I started hearing loud noises coming from them outside. The rooster was louder than normal and lots of wing clapping. So I look outside and see 2 men I've never seen before chasing the chickens. They were trying to steal them. It was more funny to me than scary. They eventually caught a couple and took them. This was in my home country, Ukraine, and we didn't have cell phones or even landlines, so I couldn't do anything but wait for my grandmother to come home. Ant lady. So my wife and I lived in apartment buildings owned by our university. We complained to get rid of our ant invasion. I'm a gamer and have some good noise cancelling headphones. This lady comes into our apartment, probably announced herself, I don't know. I'm chilling, playing games, and I hear a noise in the bathroom. My wife shouldn't be home for a few hours. I almost end up clobbering that poor woman. Police response to stabbing. That day was Friday, game night. Just moved into our new apartment, so none of our friends know where we live currently. Wife goes out to hang out with friends. It's 12 a.m. I hear a knock on our door. It's a man's voice. Now, this is weird for several reasons. No one knows where we live, and a man knocking at 12 a.m.? Nah, huge red flags. I tell him, give me a minute. I go grab the biggest knife I could. As I open the door, I hide the knife behind the thigh furthest from him. It's a police officer, and he's responding to someone in the neighborhood who claimed they got stabbed. I'm literally holding an effing knife. Lucky I hid the knife behind me, chatted a bit, and he left. Could have been bad. I had a choking scare when I was like 11 and I was home alone and watching TV while eating Skittles. I like to put a bunch in my mouth and make like a Skittle ball that I would chew on. Something on the show I was watching made me laugh and I swallowed the ball and it got lodged in my throat. I then experienced a few seconds of sheer terror because I realized that there was nobody here to help me at all and I was probably gonna die. Then I remembered some cartoon or something where someone jammed their stomach on a chair and got something unstuck from their throat. So I lunged at the corner of the recliner as hard as I could with my stomach and it actually worked and popped the small ball out. It was super lucky because I really had no idea what I was doing, but one of the worst feelings I have ever experienced. Definitely never ate Skittles that way again after that. When I was young, I came home from a party in the middle of the night when my dad was out of town. I started making a midnight quesadilla when I heard someone cough in the basement. I yelled and ran outside, and they took off through the backyard. Come to find out, my dad's ex-girlfriend's daughter stole her key to our house and came to rob us. She was busted a couple of years later doing this to her sister-in-law. I lit 2 long taper candles for some ambience while I was playing guitar late at night. I was facing the other direction, looking out the window while playing, and shortly later turned around and went back towards the candles and discovered one of them was completely gone. The stand was still there, but no melted wax. Just a bare candle holder, and the other one was still lit and no shorter than it was when I lit them. It was almost 3 a.m. and I was so terrified that I got in my car and left and drove to my dad's house. I was asleep at home alone when I turned over in bed. I casually opened my eyes a little whilst turning and they were shut again just as quickly. In that split second, I could have sworn I had seen a man stood at the bottom of my bed. I laid still, awake with my eyes closed, trying not to act like I was awake and trying to listen for any sound in the room of someone breathing or moving. I couldn't hear anything. I was too scared to open my eyes and look, consoled myself that there wasn't any way someone could have gotten in without me hearing a window smash, and fell back asleep. When I got up in the morning, though the front door was open, they didn't take anything and left no signs of being there. Was still very creepy though. This happened to me when I was in college a few years ago. If the resident assistants or maintenance at school I went to needed to do something in your room, they would knock, wait about 15 seconds, and if you didn't open the door, they would just let themselves in. I lived in campus apartments, which were 2-bedroom, but I always lived alone. Several times I would be sitting at my desk with earbuds in, playing games or some such, so I'd never hear a knock at the door, and I would glance over and just see a stranger walk down the hall in my apartment. One time I slept in because a class I had that morning was cancelled, and I woke up and there was a maintenance guy literally in my bedroom standing on a ladder messing with the wiring for the ceiling light. You would think these people would announce themselves or wake me up or anything, but nope. This psychopath just set up his ladder and started working while I was laying there asleep. That shit still has me paranoid to this day. I always have my doors locked and barred with a stop or something. Else to keep it from being opened, even if unlocked. I'm working from home, so I'm home alone a lot. One day I was working and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed some movement in my backyard. There was a man jumping over my fence into my backyard. Panicked, I called my then boyfriend, now fiance, and tell him what is happening. While I'm on the phone with him, I get a knock at my front door. It's a woman from CenturyLink informing me that technicians will need access to my backyard. I tell her someone just jumped over my fence, so I think they are already there. Way to give me a heart attack, CenturyLink. One evening, an explosion at the petrochemical plant located a mile from my house blew out of my double window in my living room while I was in the room. I definitely thought we were being bombed until I remembered where I live. I had just let my dog out to the backyard and he was completely traumatized. For the following 2 months, I had to carry him outside and sit in the grass with pieces of chicken just so he would potty. I was living alone after my ex-husband moved out, and the creepy guy across the street who was 20 years older and enjoyed drugs kept trying to date me. He would harass me when I left my house or arrived home and would threaten to rape me. I had just started dating my current boyfriend and he helped hang up motion detecting lights outside. I started carrying pepper spray and leaving the alarm on whenever I was home. My boyfriend and I also agreed that if I didn't text him for a certain period of time and he couldn't get a hold of me, that he would go to my house and check on things. I also CC'd him on my work calendar just in case. It got so scary that my boyfriend actually moved in a lot sooner than we planned because I felt so unsafe. After a creepy guy watched my boyfriend move in and saw him puttering around with project cars in the driveway, he stopped harassing me and moved away a few months later. I've never felt so unsafe in my own home, wondering if the outside lights were on because of the neighbor's cat or because the creepy guy was trying to break in. I feel unsafe in my own home right now, not because of a creepy dude trying to date me, but because of a creepy woman trying to be my friend. She stole my cat for a week, what the actual fuck? And ever since I got my cat back, someone else brought it back, but I know she had it. She's been weirdly trying to be my friend, getting her kids to sit outside my windows and knocking on my door. We had each other's phone number but never really spoke, and I had to block her number because she keeps messaging me about my cat and trying to call me. This happened to me a couple of years ago. I've also lived on my own a long time, so do not get scared easily. I had just finished reading in bed and turned my lamp off and settled down to go to sleep and hugged my cat close to me. This would be around 1:30 in the morning. I closed my eyes and I heard a voice say, meow, like imitating a cat. My window was open, so I thought it was just someone being weird outside. I opened my eyes and in the middle of my bedroom was a small boy wearing a red jumper, waving his arm above his head. I leaped up like a goddamn ninja and put the lights on, and my heart was going mad. Now, nothing paranormal has happened in this house ever in the entire time I have lived here. I spent the whole night totally freaked out, only getting a bit of sleep when it started to get light outside. My friends thought this was hilarious when I told them. I was saying there is no way I am living in a haunted house and started googling cleansing, exorcist, and whatnot. The next few nights, other weird stuff started happening. I started sleeping with the TV on, and as soon as I tried to get any sleep, I would hear freaky voices coming from it. Or I would notice shadows dip by the side of my bed. It was dreadful. I actually resorted to saying out loud, I'm really tired, so if you could not haunt me for one night, I would be really grateful. I never really believed in any sort of this stuff before, so it was like an entire paradigm shift for me. Anyway, I was going on about this to my friends at work, and one of them asked if I was on drugs. Well, funnily enough, I had just started taking this new tablet, Montelukast, for my asthma. When I got home, read the side effects, a rare one being hallucinations. Stop taking them, no more hauntings. Somebody tried to break into the house while I was by myself. The whole place was quiet and dark at nighttime. I walked past the front door to go upstairs for bed, and the handle suddenly started jerking around, like the Hulk was trying to get in. Then whoever it was started to either kick or shoulder the door, and it was making the whole frame jiggle. I completely froze and my mind went blank, just standing there like an idiot and staring. My dog bolted down the stairs like it was her time to shine, scrambled on the towel and let loose the most vicious barks I've ever heard. Whoever it was left. Once my dad left the door unlocked while he went to pick me up from school. My mom was sitting on the couch and heard the door open. She didn't think much of it because she was expecting us, but then she heard the door bang open hard and our dog bolted for the opening. Someone yelled, "Oh shit," and clattered down the steps. She didn't even see who it was, since by the time she got to the door, they cleared the fence, and our little shepherd mix was left barking fiercely at the gate. He didn't even make a noise until they were already gone. Just went straight to, "You're about to lose a leg" mode. Not exactly alone, but I was home with my newborn son and someone knocked on the front door. I was expecting my mother, but she usually comes in through the garage. I thought it was strange, but yelled, "Come in," because why wouldn't I? Then this cracked out old woman comes stumbling through the door and asked me for a ride to the nearest gas station. I told her I didn't have a car seat for my son, so I couldn't go anywhere. So she starts screaming, "That's just inappropriate," and doesn't stop even when I'm telling her she needs to leave or I will call the cops. After a minute or so, my mother actually pulls in the driveway, the crackhead seats the car and bolts back out the door, and I never see her again. That night, my truck got broken into. Can't for sure say it was the same woman, but I have her description to the cops anyway. A few years ago, I was home alone in my basement playing video games when I hear the door that connects my kitchen to the garage creak open and slam shut. But I never heard the actual mechanical garage door open. Then I heard heavy footsteps of someone wearing boots walk the length of my kitchen directly above me. I originally thought, oh, my brother must have forgotten something, as he had left about 5 minutes before that for work, so I was about to yell up to him to make fun of him, but something in the back of my mind was telling me, hold on, something's not right here. So I muted my TV to both hear better and to stay quiet. Then I heard the footsteps turn around and walk back the door. And again, I hear it creak open and slam shut, but again, I never heard the actual mechanical garage door open or close. So I slowly walk upstairs thinking maybe my brother just forgot to close the garage door. I slowly open the door to my garage and see that the garage door has been closed the entire time. The only two explanations I can come up with are either something paranormal happened or someone broke into my house, walked through my kitchen and left without taking anything, while also not letting me hear them open my garage door. In my opinion, both are equally terrifying to me. I once was in the shower, all quiet, minding my own business, when suddenly I started hearing all those really loud crashing noises and grunts and sounds of men in pain, fighting, and just about jumped out of my skin. Started rushing to get out of the shower and get my towel, etc. Turned out, husband started watching wrestling and had forgotten that his phone with him downstairs was still connected to Bluetooth speaker in the bedroom next to the bathroom where I was. When I was a kid, I heard a noise in the backyard one night and looked out the sliding glass door to see our friendly dog facing away from me on the patio. The porch light only illuminated to the edge of it and I could only see up to the back of her head. She was looking up, maybe even jumping up, and had her rear lowered and her tail wagging like someone was standing in front of her. I think she heard me and kind of turned around to look back at me, and at this point something grabbed the back of the patio chair and pulled it into the darkness. I obviously freaked out and went screaming down the hall to my parents' room, prompting my dad to search the backyard in his underwear while wielding a baseball bat, but he never found anything. I should also mention the window to my room was near the gate, so I would have heard and seen anyone had they entered the backyard through the gate. Also, the backyard was surrounded by brick walls, but they were difficult to climb over due to security features. My roommates were out of town and my dog started growling in the middle of the night at something at the end of a dark hallway. She never behaved like that, so I was genuinely freaked out. Then I started hearing noises coming from my kitchen on the other side of the house. I was fully convinced someone was in there, so like any idiot in a movie, I got a flashlight and a weapon and went to investigate. As soon as the flashlight hit the kitchen area, something freaked out and knocked a bunch of shit over. I was terrified, and then my flashlight hit the culprit. A huge effing raccoon had snuck through the doggy door and was eating my dog's food in the kitchen. We made eye contact and it immediately fled outside. I was home for the weekend from uni, but my parents and siblings were away, so home alone. Our house is quite secluded, with a church and a graveyard next door and closest neighbors up the street, but quite a bit away. I had all the doors locked and was settling down to watch a movie when the doorbell starts to ring, so I got to answer it. No one's there. Then the back doorbell rings. No one's there again. This keeps happening over and over and it's pitch black outside. Then whoever it was began banging on windows and yelling at this point. I'm freaking out. So I began to call the police and yell at the people outside that I've called them, when it turns out it was a couple of fellas from uni playing a prank on me. I was terrified and reduced to tears at this point, but they thought it was hilarious. They did a few more things like that to me over the 2 or 3 years I was in uni with them, and I always thought they were my friends. I'm older and wise now to know they were just cunts.